Alright lads, welcome back to another War Thunder vehicle review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the M1A2 SEP. This is the newest main battle tank added to the American tech tree, and currently sits at the top vehicle in this lineup. The base SEP variant weighs 0.5 tonnes heavier than the original M1A2, mainly due to its upgraded thermal optics package. There is also an additional Tusk add-on, which gives you an additional 50 caliber machine gun, as well as an urban warfare survival kit, consisting of explosive reactive armour mounted along the side of the hull. However, you'll notice in the video that I am not using this Tusk upgrade package, as it adds over 3 tonnes to the vehicle's weight. With NATO main battle tanks, especially the Abrams being famous for becoming very heavily in the late stage of life, I don't think this additional 3 tonnes is very beneficial to this vehicle at all. So I'm going to be reviewing this tank as basically an M1A2, just with an upgraded thermal package. Again, I wouldn't recommend people actually equip the Tusk add-on. It just makes the Abrams heavier and nowhere near as effective on the battlefield. But anyway, to unlock this tank it's going to cost you 400,000 research points, and you will purchase it for 1,080,000 silver lions. To put it in your lineup, it's going to cost you 310,000 silver lions, and for the expert and ace qualifications, which are important at top tier, it's 1,080,000 silver lions for the expert and 2,200 golden eagles for the ace quali. So in my opinion, with the Tusk upgrade being pretty useless, and the only real difference between the old M1A2 is the upgraded thermal optics, is it worth grinding out the SEP variant? 400,000 RP is a lot, but is it worth it? Well, stick around for the rest of the video to find out. Alright lads, welcome back. Cracking straight on with it. The Abrams is powered by the same gas turbine as the other Abrams variants. However, the SEP is 0.5 tonnes heavier at 62.2 tonnes, and as I said, it's still powered by the same engine producing 1,500 horsepower, giving it a power to weight ratio of 24.4 horsepower per tonne. This is notably less than many of the T80 tanks, which is your main competitor. As I said, if you do take the Tusk package, that weight will increase up to 65.5, something like that, tons. It's very heavy, I wouldn't really recommend taking it. That being said though, the Abrams is still very fast on the battlefield. It's not as fast as the IPM1 or some of the earlier Abrams tanks where they weren't as heavy, but it's still good enough to get yourself around the battlefield. We also have a pretty good top speed in my opinion, 69 km per hour going forwards and 39 km per hour in reverse. Pretty decent top speeds, as I'm sure you'll agree. The acceleration isn't the best though, but it's still above average I'd say. Not as good as the T80U or the T80B VM, but certainly better than the Leopard 2A5 and 2A6. I'd say at top tier, the triangle balance between mobility, firepower and armour is certainly heavily skewed in the mobility direction, so having the Abrams, which is still very mobile, is a major plus. It's one of the reasons that the Type 10s in the Japanese tech tree are so good. They have mediocre firepower and pretty much no armour at all, but they're incredibly good because they're so fast. Anyway, talking about survivability, let's go on to the Abramses. If that's a word, I'm not too sure. Anyway, if we take a look at this cutaway, we can see that the Abrams has a crew of 4 men, with a driver in the front, which is surrounded by fuel tanks, and then a gunner, commander and loader located in the turret basket. The Abrams have always been famous for their survivability. The inside of the tank is quite big, so it's hard to knock out all 4 crew members in a single shot. It's kind of a choice between disabling the Abrams mobility or disabling its firepower. We do also have an ammunition bustle in the rear of the turret. This is one of the Abrams' key features. You can basically shoot these things in the ammunition bustle and it won't kill the tank. As I'm sure you're all aware, the Abrams tank does have blowout panels in the turret. Again, vastly increasing the survivability of the SEP. I guess I should mention the Tusk package, even though I'm not really advocating its usage. These are explosive reactive armor panels which are added to the side of the hull. They will give you 20mm of protection against kinetic energy projectiles and 450mm of penetration against chemical warheads. So it's not really enough to protect you against the ATGMs at top tier, not enough to protect you from helicopter ATGMs. And for those of you who are unaware, it's basically designed to be fighting in cities, so it's only meant to protect you from RPGs and infantry launched missiles really. Not really dedicated anti-tank or air-to-ground missiles. Again, those 3 tons will significantly impact your mobility, so again, I wouldn't recommend using them. Anyway, if we take a look at the arm performance itself, And just like the M1A2, I believe this tank does use some sort of depleted uranium. However, this is only present in the turret front. Anyway, if we take a look at the armor thickness of the Abrams, and the lower frontal plate provides us around 400mm of protection, at least against the Abrams' own gun, at a range of 500 meters. The Abrams actually has Dorchester or Chobham armor in its lower frontal plate, but it's not thick enough to stop the high-performance APFSDS rounds fired at top tier. Also worth mentioning is the upper frontal plate of the Abrams. This has no armor protection whatsoever really, but it is incredibly well sloped, so you are likely to auto bounce if you shoot an Abrams here. There is a major weakness in the turret ring, located obviously below the turret and just above the driver's hatch. This is the go-to place to shoot an Abrams from the front. It basically knocks out the turret ring as well as the main cannon if you shoot just above the driver's hatch. This will obviously disable the gun of the vehicle, but will not destroy its mobility, allowing an enemy Abrams player to potentially retreat and then repair. But with the SEP being based on the M1A2, it has one of the strongest turrets in War Thunder. With over 700mm of effective thickness, there's pretty much nothing in-game which can actually penetrate the front of the M1A2's turret, at least when it comes to the turret cheeks. The gun mantlet itself is a completely different story, with the protection dropping down to just above 200mm. Again, just like the turret ring, this is another major weakness of the Abrams tank, but it is a far better bet to shoot the turret ring with this vehicle, as it's pretty much a guaranteed penetration with a modern APFSDS round. Overall, the survivability of the M1A2 SEP is very good in my opinion. You will get penetrated pretty easily, it's certainly not immune to damage, but it's very rare they actually get killed in a single shot. It's not like the Soviet vehicles where you can shoot just below the lower frontal plate or in the side of the vehicle and basically get a guaranteed kill. You don't really have a concentration of ammunition which makes you vulnerable, unlike the Russian tanks. So in general, you aren't immune from penetration, but you very rarely die in a single shot. Well boys, we've covered the mobility and the survivability. What about the firepower? And as I'm recording this, it's bonfire night in the UK, so if you can hear fireworks in the background, just pretend it's an Abrams firing. Anyway, there's no difference between this gun and the M1A2's gun, it's the same 120 M256 cannon. The Americans famously trying to improve their ammunition rather than upgrading their guns. Regardless though, you can carry 42 rounds of ammunition in total, with a stock reload rate of 7.8 seconds. We also have a first stage ready rack of 18 rounds. This is the ammunition that we see in the back of the turret, and as you'd expect with a NATO vehicle, the vertical guidance characteristics are very good, with 10 degrees of gun depression and 20 degrees of elevation. Another major advantage of the Abrams is its turret rotation speed. When it's stock it's 28 degrees, which is pretty much the best you can get on Soviet vehicles when they're fully aced, so it really does allow you to react quickly to enemy targets. Unlike the earlier Abrams models, the M1A2 SEP also features second generation thermal imaging for the gunner and commander's sights. This difference alone to me is probably one of the biggest upgrades to the Abrams that it could actually get. It's much better in simulator battles now, as you can easily acquire targets as well as define what they are. Before, personally, I'd always use thermal imaging for acquiring targets in the Abrams and then switch back to normal vision to actually shoot, but now you can shoot accurately at medium to long distances while using the thermal imager. Again, this for me is probably the best change between the SEP and the regular M1A2. But if we go on to the ammunition, and there's no difference here at all. Our stock shell is the M830, just a bog standard heater fest shell, nothing really too much to talk about. Pretty painful to use when you stock, but it's a pretty decent heater fest round, but no one's getting excited for this. In the first rank of our upgrades though, we do have the M829. Again, this used to be the old top tier American shell before every nation got the high power APFSDS about a year ago or so now. Anyway, 1670 meters per second, pretty good. 491mm of pen. It's not the highest in the game, but it certainly is usable, especially if you're a stock grinder. Getting this at rank 1 is a very nice unlock, at least compared to using a heater fest round. Bloody hell, it's painful. Just like the other Abrams in game, we also have the M830A1. This is basically a blend between a anti-tank weapon and an anti-helicopter, anti-low flying plane. It basically has a proximity fused warhead setting, so you can fire this at helicopters and maybe get a kill. They did nerf it incredibly a few patches ago. Kind of useless now, but it did used to be very good. Guess it still can be useful, but if you do spot a helicopter, you are probably just better spawning out an SBAA. Travels fairly quickly, 1400 meters per second, but it has only 350mm of penetration. So pretty useless against tanks, but it can be used against helicopters. But finally lads, our last shell, The M1A2, this is the top tier round for the Abrams as well as the earlier M1A2. It travels at 1680 meters per second, very quick, and can penetrate 629mm of armor. As you'd expect, it's a long rod penetrator, which creates a lot of shrapnel when penetrating. So not only does it have very high penetration, but it also has very good spalling as well, which gives you lots of one-shot kills, especially against Soviet vehicles, which have very cramped interior, so that shrapnel really does cover a lot of targets. And that pretty much covers it for the firepower, as well as all three of the triangles I talked about. So is it worth actually grinding out the SEP variant? Well, it's kind of like playing the M1A1 AIM, the Australian Abrams that was added a few patches ago in a squadron vehicle. It's basically just a bog standard Abrams with a lot better thermal imager, at least if you choose to not take the Tusk package, which again I wouldn't recommend taking. Compared to the squadron vehicle, the AIM, the M1A2 SEP obviously has a lot better armour, but retains a great thermal imager and has a better round. I think that this is a major buff to the American teams. They were a little bit lacking before this came out. High mobility and high resolution thermals are becoming the meta now in War Thunder. The Japanese top tier tanks have been making a comeback now. The Type 10 and the Type 10 prototype are absolutely in meta right now. They are on fire, really good performing tanks. So I think the M1A2 SEP is well worth it. Just don't tick that Tusk option box in the modifications. You don't really want to be making the tank any more slower. It's already a bit chunky. Most bridges in real world would just collapse if an M1A2 rolls over them. So thick fires save lives, but chunky tanks make logistical planners want to kill themselves. Anyway lads, I think the M1A2 SEP is well worth the grind. It's given me a lot more reasons to play the American tech tree now. I never used to play top tier America, it was pretty dead. I don't think the addition of the SEP will increase the win rate of the Americans at top tier. I think the Soviets are still the absolute steamrollers of War Thunder at the minute, but it certainly does increase the fun factor of playing top tier America now. I've been playing a lot more, and that's pretty much it lads. If you enjoyed the video, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing, and be sure to let me know down below in the comments what videos you guys would like to see reviewed next. And finally, I'd like to say a big thank you to all of my channel members: Wolfie Fly, Joseph Metcalf, Tomster013, Just Someone, Dr. Bob, Deboa LX, Tans, William Tessier, and Lola Alfonso. Thank you very much for watching lads, and I'll see you in the next review. If you watched this far into the video, leave a comment saying garlic bread.